Well, hey there everyone, and welcome to this, the latest episode of what I'm calling RBTV. I'm Patrick Gray. And today I want to have a heart-to-heart. And, I know I'm not the first to talk about this, but I want to go on record and I want to talk about victim shaming. Why is it that every time a company gets owned and all their data walks out at the door, the InfoSec community sort of chortles and says, their network was terrible. Those guys didn't know what the hell they were doing. Now, the reason I ask why is because well-run secure networks basically don't exist. There are like a few industries where they've got an excuse to spend the money, like banking, defense, sensitive government agencies, that sort of thing, and even they get it wrong. Honestly, when was the last time you did a security audit or a pen test on a regular enterprise network and wrote a report that said, hey, well done, you guys are awesome, you got this, I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee, why don't you guys take some time off, meet me downstairs, you've earned some time off, high fives all around. This is something that never happens. And yet, every time one of these same networks gets penetrated by some attacker, there's this prevailing smug attitude of, well, it wouldn't have happened if they, knew what they were doing or if I was running their security. It happens every time. Think of Target, Sony, Heartland. I actually know someone who was involved in the forensic analysis of one of those jobs. And you know what? They told me their network was actually pretty good and finding the precise point of entry was basically impossible. And this is one of the sharpest people I know. So, if it's a stone cold riddle to him, why do we think it's okay to shame the victims of cybercrime or state-based attacks? I'll admit, I've been guilty of this myself on a few occasions, but now I'm starting to think a little bit differently. Like, instead of reacting immediately along the lines of, those guys are so dumb for getting owned, I'm starting to think, after 14 years reporting on InfoSec, I'm starting to think, why has this industry failed so completely in providing these people with the tools they need to not get owned? Instead of, they got owned and should be ashamed, I'm thinking, maybe this industry should be ashamed for failing to protect them. They get owned and what do? We dish out snark. Hackers like to hack. Builders like to build and breakers like to break. Everyone's got their own roles. They're all defined. But one of these days, we're going to have to find a middle ground. Or honestly, what are we doing here? Snarky people are going to have to just get constructive. Otherwise, we're going to stay here forever. Right where we are. And I know this is going to piss off some mates of mine, but it's true. A lot of people in the pen testing industry like bashing up their clients because it gives them a sense of superiority. It's a vaguely sociopathic trait that I recognize in myself because I'm a journalist and we're all sociopaths who like beating up on people too. Just admit it. Whether you're writing an advanced exploit for repackaging and use in the defense sector, or by an intelligence agency, or you're using old school unpatched logic bugs to burrow into some poor enterprise network, one of your driving motivations is proving your superior intelligence to the people who either wrote the software or deployed the network. You monsters. But taking down the average enterprise network, it doesn't really prove much, does it? It's sort of like kicking a child. Just step back for a second and look at some of the problems these customers face. If you're a consumer, everyone happily and readily admits that you're out of the gate. Okay, so let's move on from that immediately. Let's go up the pyramid now. Say you're a small to medium enterprise. If you are, you can't afford a full-time security staffer who really kicks ass. Those guys and gals will be on six-figure salaries at consultancies doing pen testing, or they'll be buried deep in a cubicle in a bank somewhere, making ass tons of cash, flying quadricopters in their spare time, that sort of thing. So SMEs are at a pretty bad disadvantage. They're not as screwed as the consumers are, but they're at a pretty substantial disadvantage. So what they'll do, they'll be staffed by regular IT people who don't have a choice. They'll have to rely on vendor kit to do the heavy lifting for them. And yeah, good luck with that. But you'd think things would be better in the enterprise, and they're just not. Even large companies struggle to find enough people because there aren't enough good people. I know 23-year-olds on $150,000 a year packages because of the shortage in supply. And even figures like that aren't enough to shake out more people to bring them into your ranks. So there are whole swathes of these large networks that just sort of fall out of management because there's not enough people in the security teams. Hundreds, maybe thousands of systems in a large enough network just sort of slip through the cracks, and it only takes one of them to get owned. So even large companies are understaffed and have to rely on vendor kit and OS features to do the heavy lifting for them. Yeah, good luck with that. And as we know, automating security hasn't really worked so far, has it? So where does that leave anyone? Basically about 20 miles up shit creek without the proverbial paddle. But that doesn't stop people getting all snarky when they get owned now, does it? Now, regular listeners to the podcast would know our news co-host, Adam Boileau. He is a security consultant based in New Zealand, and he's doing a talk in Australia at the upcoming Australian Cybersecurity Centre Conference. It's called mission accomplished, 10 years in the pen testing industry. And I love the W metaphor because the InfoSec industry has done about as good a job in bringing security to the internet as the US military has done in bringing security to Iraq. This is just fact. Mission accomplished, guys. Well done. So what is the solution? Well, funnily enough, I think that crowdsourcing the testing of externally facing apps has a reasonable shot at soaking up some of the supply-side labor problems. Companies like HackerOne and BugCrowd, which, disclosure, is a sponsor of my podcast, companies like those are doing some really, really interesting work in this space. If they can follow through, they'll be able to reduce the average web app security consulting budget and free up consultants' time, perhaps more importantly, free up the time of consultants to do more important stuff. It is a big vision, but it has potential. What else? Well, here's the thing. We need the innovation in this area to come from the people who know the most about the problem. We need the innovation to come from the breakers. We need hackers to learn how to dev. And I know the old saying, hackers can't code and coders can't hack, but this is the problem that we need to solve. So instead of being snarky, learn to code. So until you're offering some kind of solution instead of just pen testing and submitting snarky reports, you might want to climb down off that high horse of yours, pal. Until this industry actually starts providing the tools enterprises need to lock their shit down, maybe everyone just needs to shut the f*** up. Or maybe that's just me. I'm Patrick Gray. Thanks for watching.